Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Super heavy smoke and fire. The smoke is probably about 200 feet in the air.
A massive blaze tears through an old lumber mill in Delta, sending smoke high into the lower mainland sky. Plus,
this is a broadside attack on an oil tanker ban that is the foundation of economic growth mapped out for the entire country.
BC's premier not pleased after hearing Saskatchewan is in talks about a potential pipeline to the north coast. Well, he says he's not. And
everyone loves opening day. There's that buzz in the air.
As Whistler Blackcomb opens its slopes, the North Shore Mountains wait for more snow.
We don't have an opening date, but hopefully in the coming weeks.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. We start with breaking news. The BC Conservation Officer Service says it is responding to a reported grizzly bear attack in Bella Coola near BC's Central Coast. They say several people may have been injured. The RCMP is telling people in the community to stay away from the forest and river near the 4 Mile area until further notice. In a statement, the Newhawk Nation says it is, quote, devastated for the individuals and families impacted, and they are receiving medical support. The nation is warning people to stay inside and not go looking for the bear. A free community bus loop is looping between town site and 4 Mile for anyone who needs a ride. We'll have any updates for you as they come in. A massive fire has torn through a former lumber mill in Delta. The blaze sent huge plumes of smoke into the air, visible across Metro Vancouver. The CBC's Jessica Chung has more on the damage.
A raging fire churns huge plumes of smoke sky high.
Super heavy smoke and fire. The smoke is probably about 200 feet in the air. Black. We have Metro Environmental coming here because there's a lot of people phoning in because of the fire. Flames were going through the roof.
The blaze broke out just after 9 in the morning at an old mill under demolition north of the Fraser Bridge on Alaska Way. The deputy fire chief says demo crews were there, actively demolishing the building when the fire broke out, but there were no reported injuries.
No one inside. Yeah, when we arrived, everyone was outside, everyone was counted for, so we didn't have to worry and go in and make any rescues or anything.
By midday, crews had knocked down 70% of the fire, but smoke still lingered. Metro Vancouver says it's keeping an eye on the air quality due to the amount of smoke that came from the fire. They're asking those affected to head indoors, close their windows, and run an air filter if possible. The Vancouver Port Authority says this blaze won't be impacting port operations. As for what caused this fire, the fire chief says it's still under investigation, but doesn't believe it to be suspicious. Jessica Chung, CBC News, Delta.
Alberta's premier is knocking down a BC proposal to help boost oil capacity. The pitch involves sending more crude through the now expanded Trans Mountain pipeline. As Yasmin Khanea reports, Daniel Smith is pushing for a new project that BC says is a pipe dream.
On either side of the Rocky Mountains, conflicting perspectives on Canada's pipeline future.
You know, we built the pipeline and support them to be able to use the pipeline that the people of Canada own to the fullest.
British Columbia, which previously went to court to block the expansion of the Trans Mountain pipeline, says moving more Alberta crude oil to the west coast is better than Daniel Smith's proposal of building an entirely new pipeline.
I would like to see expansions in all directions.
The Trans Mountain pipeline runs from Edmonton to Burnaby, delivering about 890,000 barrels of petroleum products each day. Trans Mountain wants to increase capacity up to roughly 1.2 million barrels a day in the next 4 to 5 years. But Smith says that's not enough, pushing for a pipeline that runs through northern BC.
The world is going to need more oil in particular. OPEC has now said it's probably 125 million barrels a day by 2050, and we need to be a growing share of that growing market.
It comes as Alberta and the federal government discuss a new energy accord, with Ottawa reportedly considering granting limited exemptions to the current tanker ban on BC's north coast.
The federal government is also facing what we might call an existential crisis, and it is trying to reinvigorate some of these big projects that will help us to diversify our markets and our economy.
BC Premier David Eby says exemptions could put future projects worth billions of dollars at risk by defying the wishes of First Nations.
It's like explaining to a vegetarian that, they'll still be a vegetarian if they eat a few steaks. The risk is to the long-established lifestyle of coastal First Nations, but also $1.7 billion in economic activity up and down the coast.
Saskatchewan's premier says his government is also involved in discussions about a BC pipeline.
I almost fell out of my seat when I heard Scott Moe say that he was part of these conversations and was helping in these discussions, which I was completely unaware of, between Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the federal government about what happens in British Columbia.
Eby says he wants his province to also have a seat at the table moving forward. Yasmin Ranea, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, a former BC NDP and NDP MP and MLA argues Eby's Trans Mountain pitch would do the same thing as Danielle Smith's proposed new pipeline with less effort.
That expansion, the allowing of more oil through that pipeline, is about equivalent to what the Northern Gateway pipeline would have shipped. So you have a proposal on the table from BC right now that is cheaper, it is faster, it has the support of the province.
Meanwhile, some First Nations are reminding leaders they never supported the Trans Mountain pipeline in any form, let alone an expansion.
Even though it was constructed and in operation, we still firmly oppose this project, knowing the detrimental risks that it puts within, I don't say our backyard, I say our kitchen sink.
Alex says the pipeline has impacted her people's food sources, education, and way of life. She notes the province has a duty to consult on any expansions and must respect Indigenous rights to the land and water. An intensive care unit that serves all of Vancouver Island's west coast is closed because of a staffing shortage. As Murray Zeidler reports, Island Help says they will reopen it as soon as more staff are brought in.
It's a hospital ICU with only 3 beds, but one that serves communities across Vancouver Island's west coast. And now it's closed until further notice. The West Coast General Hospital is in Port Alberni. The ICU serves patients all the way to Tofino. Island Health says the ICU is closed temporarily. There just aren't enough specially trained doctors and nurses to keep the unit open. Some people in Port Alberni say the closure is unacceptable.
I'm really concerned that it's coming into Christmas, and that's usually when we have more critical incidents happening, like car accidents on bad roads and whatnot. And if we're diverting resources to transport critical patients outside of our community, how is that going to affect the non-critical people that are at the other end of 911 waiting for an ambulance for, say, a broken hip for a slip and fall?
Local MLA and Provincial Health Officer Josie Osborne took to social media yesterday, acknowledging the problem, but also trying to ease residents' concerns.
There are contingency plans in place, and I want to reassure everyone that West Coast General is well versed in safe transfer practices for patients who need intensive care.
Osborne says at issue is a shortage of medical staff across BC, and the province is doing everything it can to recruit more medical professionals. Island Health says most ICU patients from West Coast General will be redirected to Nanaimo to its new ICU. Some of the patients might also be redirected here in the Comox Valley, but local MLA and rural health critic Brennan Day says that's a problem. He says the ICU here is already overburdened and dealing with staffing shortages of its own.
It's a system-wide problem, but this is forcing burnout in other areas. When we close one facility, it's transferring that workload onto staff that's already at the end of their rope.
Island Health says it cannot confirm when the ICU at West Coast General will reopen. In the meantime, it wants people to know the ER is still available and patients will still get the emergency care they need. Marie Zeidler, CBC News, Comox.
As temperatures drop, winter sports enthusiasts are gearing up for the season. Whistler Blackcomb is set to open this week, albeit one run. And as Tanushi Bhatnagar reports, the North Shore Mountains are looking a bit dry.
Ski season on Whistler's Blackcomb Mountain is starting Friday. The resort is opening one run to kick off the winter and says they're expecting winter sports enthusiasts to show up in full steam.
The energy, excitement, as always, is going to be palpable. You know, everyone loves opening day. There's that buzz in the air that you just can't replicate.
They say they will continue to open more terrain throughout this weekend and next week. But for the North Shore, the excitement is not yet here. For skiers hoping to hit the local mountains, they might have to wait a little bit longer. As you can see behind me, there's only traces of snow cover on the peaks, not enough to ski on. All the three mountains, Cypress, Seymour and Grouse, say they're waiting for snowfall later this year in hoping to open by early to mid-December.
We don't have an opening date finalized quite yet, as it all depends on the snowfall. But hopefully in the coming weeks, we'll see more of that great snow.
And local ski equipment stores say they certainly feel that snow dump delay.
A little less than we'd hoped comparatively to last year. The sales have been a little bit slower.
He says longer, warmer temperatures mean people are still in the mood for summer sports.
But as soon as the first snowfall comes and those mountains turn white, then all of a sudden you just think, oh my God, bring it out, because that's, everyone loves skiing.
Environment Canada says while the next few weeks will be cold, snowfall is unpredictable, but not completely ruled out.
If we do get some precipitation coming through, it could fall as snow, especially on the higher terrain.
Enthusiasts say they're looking forward to the mountains being decked in white soon.
And maybe ski with us. We're going to be out there. The customers will be out there.
Optimism riding high, with skiers hoping the season is not too far away. Tanushi Bhatnagar, CBC News, Vancouver.
Let's bring in the science and climate specialist Darius Madavi with a first look at the weather. When might the North Shore Mountains get some snow?
I would say that the best bet is going to be towards the end of next week. We're going to see a fair amount of cold air spilling south. Freezing levels first drop at the beginning of next week, but then we see them drop once again towards the end, and that's our big chance. This is a big stream of moisture coming in, bringing stormy, snowy conditions to the north and central coast and up in the northwest. That is likely to continue over the next few days. You can see some snow moving through the central interior there as well. Here on the south coast, Whistler can expect some snow over the next couple days in the Alpine. Less so for the local mountains, though. Dan?
Okay. Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, still fresh off the pitch, Vancouver Rise FC players celebrated their Northern Super League championship win with fans young and old recently.
It's the first time I went. I really liked it. Joined the supporter group, and then I ended up going to the Rise party against Ottawa, and then I went to their final, and then I went to their other event a few days ago, and now I happen to be here.
I play soccer, so I'm really excited about this because I hope I can get on this team when I'm older.
We're absolutely in love with these women, and we're so proud. Women in sports, finally, this has happened. We've always loved watching the girls, but to have a proper league is fantastic. So, yeah, we're all in, baby.
So tonight is a celebration, and although the season is finishing, this is still just the beginning.
I think this personifies the power of women's sport and what can happen when women's sport gets the respect and investment that it deserves. We see fans in the crowd, we see little girls, getting signatures from their players, their idols. We see little boys doing it as well. It inspires a whole generation, and it's a privilege for us to be doing it.
2025!
I think that's the most special part about this league. It's giving these athletes a platform to be able to show what's possible. For me, growing up, I had always said I wanted to be a Vancouver Canuck because I never saw anything else. And so that's, for me personally, what's really important about this. It's showing what's possible and allowing kids to dream.
As the weather gets colder, shelters for unhoused people become more important, even life-saving. After the break, how some politicians are calling for a different approach.
It's one of a kind. We've got a festive feel-good Friday you don't want to miss.
It's great because people can just walk up and have a good time.
CBC's Make the Season Kind. It's the kindest day ever. Start a new holiday tradition with CBC on Friday, December 5th. Join us to help raise money for local food banks across BC. For all the details, head to cbc.ca/kindbc or scan the QR code on your screen right now.
As BC continues to push modular housing, the province is offering a new online platform to support developers.
It's a first in Canada software platform for developers and nonprofits to help design and construct 3 to 6 story buildings more quickly and at lower cost.
The BC government says the platform will allow developers to access prefabricated materials made in BC and get more homes onto the rental market. With the holiday season just around the corner, Mothers Against Drunk Driving is kicking off its annual Project Red Ribbon to promote sober driving.
I've held pressure on wounds, tried to calm passengers, and watched families run towards the scene where no one should have to come and witness.
The campaign urges you to plan ahead for a safe ride home if you're going to be drinking alcohol, using cannabis, or other drugs. A winter shelter in the northern BC town of Smithers has sparked plenty of controversy. It's just one of several communities, though, in this province with fierce debates about approving spaces for those who without homes. As Justin McElroy reports, some politicians are calling for a different approach to a yearly challenge.
Smithers. It's in northern BC, has a population of about 5,000 people, and this week held a public meeting that was watched online by more people than live in the entire town.
I feel like we were not consulted at all.
That was one of many speakers at the 2-hour meeting. And the thing people felt they weren't consulted on? This former church, 2 blocks off the highway, which has just become a temporary emergency shelter. It has 8 beds, and the permit only extends until the end of March. But it came together on short notice. While no drugs will be allowed on site, the nonprofit operating it is called the Bulkley Valley Harm Reduction Society. And because its zoning allows for rescue missions, it did not require a vote for approval. And so, the backlash, prompted in part by Conservative MLA's news release that called it experimental and a reckless social experiment that wasn't part of the original plan.
It was a warming shelter for people to go in and get something hot to eat and to warm up and then leave. There was never anybody proposed to spend the night.
But there is a need for people to have a place where they can spend the night. Before this week, Smithers had no emergency shelters, with the nearest one being 200 kilometers away in Terrace. The town is spending hundreds of thousands on security at a homeless camp. And the number of homeless in the community has tripled this decade and now make up more than 1% of the town's entire population. The mayor said they're working towards a permanent shelter, but that is taking time, and this temporary solution is the best they could do for this winter.
I'm not so naive to think that there's not going to be difficulties, and I fully understand why people are concerned.
But it's worth noting, this is not just a Smithers story. These types of conflicts are increasingly happening in smaller communities across the province. In Sydney, council recently rejected an emergency weather shelter that would have been open around 10 days a year. In Port Alberni, there's tension over a council vote next week on extending the license for the city's largest year-round shelter. Now, there are a variety of different designations for shelters in BC, but as Smithers laid out in its public town hall, they generally revolve around nonprofits finding a land or a building, applying to BC Housing for funding to do something there, and then hoping that municipalities give the green light for a temporary permit. Port Alberni's mayor says that is a problem, particularly in smaller communities that have less established nonprofits acting as the middleman between provincial funds and local approvals.
It just really stops us from being able to properly plan for where should these services be in our community when it's going to be potentially a different service provider every year competing for the funds in a different space that we need to offer a temporary use permit or other short-term mechanism to.
It's why the Union of BC Municipalities has asked the province to create a coordinated regional approach to setting up shelters instead of the free-for-all that happens in every municipality around this time of year.
I think when you have a scarce resource like funding for shelter spaces, it really makes sense to us to deploy those resources across a region.
Thus far, the province hasn't shown an interest in changing the system. In a statement to CBC, they highlighted the amount of money invested and said they continue to work with municipalities that next year will probably see the same cycle of town halls and votes. But no matter how those votes go, there will be people in their communities still looking for those shelters. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
There's a lovely late afternoon look downtown from our tower cam. We got a reprieve from the rain on the south coast, but it will be short-lived. Darius will have your BC-wide forecast coming up. Prime Minister Mark Carney met with the president of the UAE today as those two countries signed an investment agreement. But as Ashley Burke reports, deepening ties with Gulf countries comes with political risks.
This is the only part of the Prime Minister's day the UAE allowed Canadian media to film. Mark Carney touring the biggest mosque in the country. It cost hundreds of millions of dollars to build and is a symbol of the UAE's wealth. And what attracted Mark Carney here.
It's truly humbling, inspiring for me to see, and a testament to Sheikh Zayed, testament to the Emirati people.
Behind closed doors, the Prime Minister met with the UAE's president, signing a new investment deal and launching talks toward a free trade agreement with the UAE.
What it says to Canadians is that there's a bigger world out there than just the United States. And if we are going to diversify our trade, if we're going to prosper, we have to go out there and actually drum up some business.
Carney wants the UAE to invest in Canadian projects like ports, mines, and liquefied natural gas. And for Canadian companies to expand their construction, aerospace, and agriculture to the UAE.
When you know how to navigate the UAE and have ties in the UAE, it allows you to have those external relationships also with other Arab countries.
But human rights groups want Carney to speak up about allegations the UAE is funding a paramilitary force accused of atrocities in Sudan, claims it denies.
Prime Minister Carney can send the simple message that we refuse to build our economy on the backs of emaciated corpses and mass graves. That cannot be the cost of doing business.
The Prime Minister's office says Carney and the president discussed a range of security issues in the Middle East and Africa, but wouldn't say if that includes Sudan. They also said that Carney doesn't have time to answer journalists' questions before taking off for South Africa on Friday for the G20. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Abu Dhabi.
American government officials are now in Ukraine to discuss efforts to end the war with Russia. It comes amid continuing bloodshed. As Briar Stewart explains, Russian attacks killed more than 24 people and wounded dozens more early yesterday.
Crews still work to recover the dead after a Russian missile slammed into this apartment building in western Ukraine Wednesday. Among the growing number of victims, those born into the war. I came to pray for the children that went to sleep peacefully and didn't have a chance to wake up, said this woman. Against the backdrop of so much grief, there's frustration over reports Moscow and the U.S. drew up a 28-point peace proposal. It reportedly calls for Ukraine to give up the Donbas region in the east, where Russia continues to try and claw away more land. And for Ukraine to cut the size of its military by 40%, suggestions Kyiv has rejected many times before. In a video released by the Kremlin, President Vladimir Putin inspected Russian troops, later saying Ukrainian soldiers should be given the opportunity to surrender.
We are thankful to President Trump. Best regards to him.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky met with the U.S. Secretary of the Army and says he'll be speaking with Donald Trump soon. Washington insists Ukraine has been included all along.
They've been engaging with both sides, Russia and Ukraine, equally to understand what these countries would commit to.
Many Ukrainians say what appears to be on the table now is a non-starter.
It's like, what the hell is this?
Hannah Sheila spoke to CBC News with the help of a generator after multi-hour blackouts because of Russia's relentless attacks on the country's energy grid.
Do you fear at all that Washington is maybe moving to put more pressure on Ukraine?
Yes. I mean, the question is that it is not them to decide the future of Ukraine. It is the people of Ukraine to decide this future.
And she said the government wouldn't be able to sell a proposal that amounts to surrender, not after nearly 4 years of Russia's all-out war and so much loss. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Canadian travel to the United States has dropped sharply since President Donald Trump took office again earlier this year. Andrew Chang breaks down the numbers to explain the impact on the U.S. economy and how many American businesses are trying to win Canadians back.
I'm just going to come right out and say it. The Canada-US relationship isn't great right now.
Donald Trump declaring on social media that he's officially called off trade talks with Canada.
Our relationship with the United States will never again be the same as it was.
The relationship between its people isn't great. From the very top, Donald Trump, Mark Carney, this icy toast immediately after Trump recently called off trade talks, but right down to regular people like you and me. And I especially mean that if you're Canadian like me. Because look at these bars, round-trip car trips by Canadians to the US. Those are COVID numbers over there. You kind of expect those to be low, but 2025, year one of Trump term 2, that's a massive cliff. The latest data showing a more than 30% drop in traffic.
With everything going on in the US, I feel like a lot of Canadians kind of want to stay home.
Won't be going to the US.
No. We're not going to America. We're not spending our money there. It's Canada first, baby.
Every tally and projection I've seen for 2025 is that the US economy will lose billions of dollars in tourist revenue. And what's more, the fundamental way we see travel here in Canada, is that something we do down south or within our own borders? That's been upended. Let me show you how, and the way that's making some Americans real worried.
Truth is, California just wouldn't be California without Canada. Thank you, Canada.
What do you say to Canadians that don't want to go to the U.S. now because of your 51st state talk, because of the trade war, the tariffs?
Yeah,
and
well,
fear
I understand that. Look, I understand that. It's something that will get worked out. There's still great love between the two countries.
So check out the latest travel data we're getting from both sides of the border. This line here, those are Canadian round-trip car trips to the US for all of last year, month by month. But here's what 2025 looked like, starting in January with Trump's inaugural take on Canada.
Canada should be a 51st state. Canada's a very bad abuser. Canada's been ripping us off for a long time. Without the U.S., Canada really doesn't have a country.
Year over year, we've now seen 10 straight months of decline, totaling millions fewer trips to the US in 2025 alone.
Because of Trump, I'm not going to travel to the States.
It's going to be a while before we ever decide to do anything in the US.
And it's not just the land border Canadians are staying away from. Air travel is the same way. This first line, Canadian return trips from the US by plane for all of 2024, and then you see in 2025, January to October, drops once again in every single month. Travel to and from the US clearly down year over year. And mind you, this is at a time when Canadian travel overseas is consistently up year over year. So this is a costly problem for America. The latest projection from the US Travel Association is that their economy will be down nearly $6 billion in tourist revenue compared to last year, driven primarily by the fact that so many Canadians just aren't coming.
You are looking at a multi-billion-dollar industry. Literally about 1 out of 12 American jobs are related to travel and tourism.
And Canada is a key part of that. While most travelers within the US are American, Canada is the single biggest outside source of visitors. Just over a quarter of all international visitors to the US come from Canada. Together with Mexico, that's more travel to the US than all other countries combined.
It's our largest international market. You're not just talking about, an on-the-surface economic impact loss of visitor spending. You're talking lost tax revenue to the states and communities. You're also looking at job losses potentially, especially in our border communities. There's a lot of jobs dependent upon that cross-border tourism.
But the projection down the road from the US Travel Association that even with big draws like the FIFA World Cup and America 250 celebrations next year, Canadian travel won't recover to pre-COVID or even pre-Trump levels for another 5 years. The top destinations for Canadians are New York, Washington, Florida, and California. From those states, we've seen ad campaigns specifically targeting those Canadians they can't afford to lose. From New York, just an hour outside of Montreal.
To our neighbors in Quebec, we know travel choices can be complicated. But if you're looking for a getaway that still feels like home, Plattsburgh and the Adirondack Coast are here for you.
From California, an ad that almost sounds more like an apology than an invitation.
Without you, we wouldn't be as beautiful. And we wouldn't be as full-bodied. or delicious.
And that messaging comes right from the top.
The Golden State and Canada have always shared so much in common. Sure, you know who's trying to stir things up back in D.C., but don't let that ruin your beach plans.
It's like this very intentional effort to say, Canada, we're not Trump's America.
California, it's the ultimate playground, 2,000 miles from Washington and a world away in mindset. Because here in California, we've got plenty of sunshine and a whole lot of love for our neighbors up north.
But there's a problem here, because all of these ads I've just shown you are from months ago. If they're having an impact, I don't know if I'm seeing it. And that might be because American cities and states, they're not just up against this monumental push effect of Donald Trump on Canadians, steering them away. They're also contending with the pull of a country that, for Trump's entire second term, has been trying to get its own people to stay.
And now is also the time to choose Canada. It might mean changing your summer vacation plans to stay here in Canada and explore the many national and provincial parks, historical sites, and tourist destinations our great country has to offer.
Being our own best customer will put more of every public dollar back into our economy.
And this appears to line up with how Canadians feel. According to an Angus Reid survey, standing up for Canada was a top reason Canadians gave for why they're planning to travel to the US less. And when asked, so then, where are you going instead? Tied for the #1 answer was travel within Canada.
So 87% of those travelers say that they'll find somewhere else to go, and Canada is tied for the top destination alongside just other destinations outside of North America.
This week we were planning on going, but we decided to make a different decision.
Stand up for Canada. You know, they're poking us in the eye, so we got to poke them back.
The Canadian government has seized on this, introducing discounts on attractions that are federally owned or managed. So that means free admission to certain national parks. Same goes for some museums in Ottawa, Quebec, and beyond. Children can even travel for free on Via Rail. And all year, we've seen proof that more and more Canadians don't want to visit the US. Early this year, Canadian domestic travel up. Money spent up even more. Then later in the year, over the summer, an even bigger spike, billions of dollars more flowing within the Canadian economy. Canadian Airbnb bookings within Canada up in a big way. Growth in almost every single province and territory, and really big growth at that.
It's going to continue if we don't see a significant change in American politics with respect to Canada, but also within the United States as well.
Americans are hoping this is just a hiccup, but if this becomes a longer-term event, you're looking at the loss of billions of dollars of potential tourism revenue in the future.
What this all adds up to is bad news for the US economy. Not make or break on a national level, but certainly a pain point on a local level. And suffer enough of those over a long enough period, that's when this becomes about more than just the dollars and cents.
CN Rail is giving up its lease on a stretch of rail line near Squamish. Now the mayor is calling for clarity on the future of that system. That story after the break. This summer, CN Rail announced it would let go of its long-term lease of the former BC Rail line north of Squamish that runs all the way to 100 Mile House. CN's departure is expected to have a huge impact on towns and people living along the tracks. So where did this story start? Let's take a look back at a CBC News story from 2003.
Since 1917, BC Rail has been running its trains out of this yard in Squamish. At one time, more than 500 people worked here. In recent years, that number has been cut back to 150. And now that the provincial government has sold BC Rail to CN Rail, this yard is expected to close for good.
The employees had a meeting with the railway executive yesterday afternoon. And the executive made it quite clear that, in their opinion, all the jobs are going to be gone.
The effect of those job losses on this community of 15,000 is on the minds of many here this week.
You know, people, they'll lose their houses and lose their jobs, and yeah, of course it'll have an effect.
They're all homeowners, they all buy stoves, they all buy parts and pieces off me, so yeah, well, and they're all friends of mine too.
But the mayor of Squamish says much of that concern may be unwarranted. According to Ian Sutherland, when you crunch the numbers, the situation isn't nearly as dire as some believe.
Now, CN stopped running its freight service along the line a few years ago. So what happens to the services and people who rely on that rail line now? Joining us is the mayor of Squamish, Armand Herford. Mayor, what worries you most about CN's discontinuance of this lease with the province?
Well, first of all, Squamish does still have, just for situational awareness, Squamish does still have access to the rail access to the south, but we're concerned here about further erosion of that service. We have a long history of rail in the community, and we also but it also forms, we feel, a key part of our economic future as well.
And in a growing region like your community. Now, in a statement to CBC News, CN Rail says it prioritizes transparency with its stakeholders and customers in all its decision-making. What has the company told you so far, if anything?
Not a lot. And frankly, it's the province I'd like to hear from on this as to what the process is and what the vision is for this important asset.
Now, we have heard as well from the BC Transportation Ministry, which says it's told us it has met with CN leadership to understand this decision and review next steps, though it notes that it also referred us to the Canadian Transportation Agency on a federal level. What does that give you any comfort, or what do you make of what they're saying there?
Very little comfort in that. I think that the federal agency is looking out for its regulations and CN's obligation. It's not looking out for the interests of the province. This is a provincial asset, and I think we need to have an idea. And I'd like to see some leadership from the province on what the vision is. What is an ideal outcome for this asset? And I haven't heard that vision, nor have I seen any commitment to working through what that could or should be.
What would happen to Squamish and its people and businesses, including port operations, if this line north of you shuts down?
Well, again, it is an erosion of the service here. What we're hearing at this point is that we will have access to the south, and we do have a port to service, and we have a lot of industries here in Squamish that having access to international markets via rail is important. So I think that on some levels we'll be okay on this step, but really this asset is just such a big piece of British Columbia. And when we hear about trade enabling initiatives and things like this, and as well as our need to reimagine our transportation future, stepping away from a rail line like this just does not feel like the path forward to me.
And lastly, Mayor, we appreciate your time. What would you like to see the line be used for in the future?
Well, I think that in Squamish here, we would like to continue to see access and our port to have access to that rail line. I do think that there should be opportunity for passenger service at some point, and to what extent and how far along the line, I'm not sure. But given that the sea to sky highway is incredibly challenging to maintain, and we have lots of both tourism and regular sort of commuters to move around. I think that rail line should form sort of the backbone of our transportation into the future.
Squamish Mayor Armand Herford, we appreciate your time and your perspective. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for the interest.
The weather update is brought to you by BC Cancer Foundation. Give today to bring more progress and possibilities to patients and their families. Your donation changes everything.
Darius Madavi is back with the BC-wide weather forecast, and things are tilting a little colder.
That's right. Not this level of snow, but the story is about... this is about across Canada, where we're seeing some colder weather start to set in. It all comes down to the polar vortex, and I have to say, Dan, seeing the term sudden stratospheric warming in headlines was not on my bingo card. I understand why polar vortex makes headlines, but I've seen it sudden stratospheric warming
Easy for you to say.
A few times, and that's surprising. Now, this is related to the polar vortex. Polar vortex, these winds, very strong winds high up in the atmosphere, somewhat related to the polar jet stream, which is what traps all that Arctic air and actually affects our weather down here at the surface. But every once in a while, the polar vortex gets disrupted, especially when those airs start to warm up, and that's what allows that cold air to sink south down into Canada and other places. Now, that means that we could be seeing some colder air dipping down soon, because we do seem to be seeing a sudden stratospheric warming event. This isn't uncommon. We usually get at least one a year, but it's happening very early. This has only happened a couple times in recorded history in November, and it looks like in the next week or so, we're going to see one of these events. You saw that disruption to the vortex, that cold air there, and that means, as we look here over the next week or so, very cold air starting to make its way south into parts of Canada. So expect pretty big temperature drops as we get into the end of next week, especially for BC's interior. Now, in the meantime, we have more precipitation coming in, and freezing levels do come down a bit towards the end of weekend and early next week, which means snow coming to some areas. That includes Whistler, which could see as much as 20 to 40 centimeters of snow. I've upped it 10 centimeters compared to yesterday this weekend, which is good news for opening weekend there. But some of that rain will also be coming in stormy conditions for parts of southwest BC, so we should be ready for that. This is especially going to be heavy Saturday afternoon for the Lower Mainland, probably Saturday morning for parts of Vancouver Island, so that is something else to be on the lookout for. Lots of snow coming for a lot of the mountains, especially as those freezing levels fall later in the weekend. But still plenty in the meantime in those areas that are a little bit chillier already, like the central interior and the northern interior. And in terms of the amount of rain, again, really starts to pick up as we get into Saturday, so something to be aware of. In terms of conditions for tomorrow, again, rain coming to the coast, starts to break into the interior, but the southern interior stays dry for tomorrow, Dan. In terms of the 5-day forecast, few rainy days, and then some colder but sunnier weather early next week.
Okay. Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
If everyone has his day, you know that phrase. Winston Churchill's day has certainly lasted longer than most. The auction sale of his Marrakesh painting is helping pay down the debt of the Hudson's Bay Company. We'll tell you how much after this.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
On Friday, December 5th, start a new holiday tradition at CBC's Make the Season Kind in support of local food banks across BC. Come down to the CBC Outdoor Plaza where we're celebrating all things kind, from karaoke to a 5K run, plus exclusive treats, selfies, and more. For all the details and to find out how you can give, visit cbc.ca/kindbc.
The Hudson's Bay Company has auctioned off 27 pieces of its fine art collection. Art lovers and historians vied for a chance to own one of the rare paintings.
It was a piece by Winston Churchill, though, that was the big catch of the night. CBC's Michelle Song has more.
All 27 paintings from the Hudson's Bay Company's art collection sold above its estimated sale price, with bids ranging from tens of thousands of dollars to over $1 million. The auction house called the sale a success. The star of the auction was the oil painting of Marrakesh by former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. That sold for almost $1.6 million. It was estimated to go for $400,000 to $600,000, very low in comparison to similar paintings, according to this expert.
One of his other paintings of Marrakesh that was done a few years later than this one went on sale, well, it's just about 4 years ago. And it sold for a lot of money. It sold for well over £8 million. So relatively speaking, you know, the estimated price on this particular one, and it's quite similar image, about the same size, also an oil painting on canvas. So this one, the estimated price is around $500,000 Canadian.
Another notable sale, the Frederick Marley Bell Smith painting from 1894 of pedestrians strolling along rainy Toronto streets. It sold for almost $700,000. Two 19th century wartime pieces from William Birksey, who is one of the founders of the City of Toronto, those selling over $100,000. The auction house says it's rare to see all paintings sold in a single auction.
That Hudson's Bay sale at Heffel today was incredible. We had a lot of enthusiasm leading up to the previews, and we knew the sale was going to be very successful.
The Hudson's Bay collection is a reflection of the company's long history, spanning centuries. The now dissolved company started the sale of its artifacts to pay off its debt of nearly $1 billion. The auction house will be selling the company's remaining pieces in a series of online auctions, stretching into the next year. Michelle Song, CBC News, Toronto.
Which one did you get?
Not the one with the moose. That's the one I wanted.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, YouTube, and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
And we will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. Good night.